love this format, actually, first of all. It's very unusual format for me, because normally, I'm giving this theoretical presentations, and this is rather personal. So I would also like to change the sequence of my presentation a little bit, and first talk about myself and about the story. And I think from then on, I will dive into the specifics a little bit, and go more a little bit into theory or what I think made me like that. So I first start how everything started. And actually, I'm almost 50 years old now. I'm now living in Germany again with my wife and my 2 children since 2 years. I'm freelancing and in the field of consulting, event management, and now also food trade. I will go into that later on, but maybe I first just tell you a little bit about where I came from. I came from a very small village in the west of Germany, close to the Dutch border, very rural in the 80s when I grew up. I went to the regular schools here and everything. My parents were, and I want to get back to Elena because she said her parents were government officials. My parents were government officials too. And even worse, they were tax officials. Tax officials, so they can't get worse, can't it? Huh? So actually, I grew up in a very stable environment, very, deep in the west of Germany, far from Eastern Germany, close to the Netherlands, in the EU. My parents had stable salaries, like a very stable environment, very Catholic. When I went to school, I find it quite boring. Actually, it is a beautiful place, but it was boring. And the older I grew, the more I thought, I have to leave this place. I have to see something from the world. And my parents, and this is one thing that where they inspired me, is traveling. My parents, especially my father's side, they were always traveling a lot, even in the 50s and 60s when Germany was just developing. My father was sent to Spain in the 50s at the age of 6 to spend 8 weeks with his family, and he learned Spanish fluently. And he took me to Spain from age 2 every year in summer, and I loved it. So, and then I, started learning Spanish at a very young age already, very simple Spanish. And, that was the first, ingredient for me to enable my quest for more internationality. And so I finished my high school, went to civil service in Germany. I didn't do the military. Then I I was facing the question, what am I going to do with my life? And I was always interested in different cultures, in other languages. I had Spanish, Italian, French, Latin, and English at school. So I was really into languages. And I was, that was in 1992, and I was looking at the world and I said, okay, if I want to study a language and learn about another culture, I got like really interesting things. Like I could do Japanese, I could do Russian, I could do Arabic, or Chinese. And I said, okay, Japan isn't a developed country. It's not that inspiring in terms of, what's happening there. Russia, we had a lot of Eastern Germans who were already able to speak Russian. So I said, Russian, we skip that. There's already a lot of people, including our chancellor, who can speak Russian fluently. And then I said, Arabic, I'm not sure, maybe it's not so my cup of tea. And I said, okay, why not China? And China at the time, you remember, 1992, that was 3 years after, the incident in Tiananmen Square. And at that time, China was a total, no one wanted to know anything about China. It was really out. The Western media was picking on the country. I said, I'm interested in China. China is fantastic. I have to learn about this country, about the people, about the culture. And then I asked my father, what do you think? And my father said, do it. Do it. No worries. We'll sponsor you. If you fail because the language is too complicated, then you just switch it to something else. And so my father really, encouraged me to study it. And so in the end, I started studying Chinese at the University of Bonn, which was a very good choice because it was the translators and interpreters seminary for the German Foreign Service. That was just across of the German Foreign Service at the time, Department of State, when you want to put it in an American way. And so that helped me a lot to really get a good understanding of the Chinese language. And yeah, I went to China after 2 years of studying Chinese. I loved it, you know, it's great. 2 years of studying Chinese, it took me to be on a level that I could communicate. And I said, I have to go to China now. And I went to China for 5 weeks, summer vacation in 1995. And China just the year before this, they canceled their dual currency system. They had a currency for Chinese and a currency for foreigners. And we just entered China after it, you know, adjusted and opened up. And we went to very remote places in China, including Hainan Island, where I lived later on in, you know, like 10 years ago. Hainan Island, and also to Tibet and to Tibetan areas. And that was fantastic. It was absolutely mind-blowing what I saw. Very, very beautiful landscapes, incredible experience with the local people because they were so interested in foreigners that, you know, the encounters were just incredible. They were so interested. Yeah, and, you know, I got 2 friends with me at the time, traveling with me. They were also studying Chinese, but they were not really willing to speak the language. So I had to do everything for them, and that was perfect. I had to really change money, you know, buy stuff, buy the tickets and everything. So that helped me to really improve my Chinese. I did the vacation and I was really fixed on China. I said, wow, fantastic. And after that, I applied for a scholarship, you know, with the German Chinese government. They sent me over for a language exchange program in China. So I could, you know, really learn more Chinese for 1 year. It was perfect. And the good thing at the time was that they didn't send me to the big cities in China, like Beijing or Shanghai, but they sent me to Chengdu, which no one knows in the West, but it has like 20 million inhabitants. So it's a medium-sized city by Chinese standards. Chengdu is in the west of China, southwest, better say. And it was an incredible year. I had a lot of experience. I learned Chinese. I went traveling a lot. And yeah. So, and after that, I continued my studies in Germany, changed the university. I changed from a rather classical subject to a more modern subject. And I studied economy and law as additional subjects. Because I wanted to make sure that I don't only end up with a language, but also have some, you know, hard subjects. Yeah, and then I did my internships in China. I wrote my thesis, my graduation thesis in China, and then I was employed by the German consulting company, actually, with state background. So I was employed, and I went directly from my studies to China in the year 2000. And I decided to do my PhD. I did my PhD on the job about Chinese environmental protection law. It's something that many people shake their head about, but there is actually Chinese environmental protection law. So yeah, I did that for 4 years, and I was working on the job at the same time. Yeah, I lived a good life in China. I did a lot of travel. I joined the local cycling club. I went trekking with a local trekking club into the mountains. I joined the local diving club. You know, I was, in 2006, I did my diving instructor in China. I was the first foreigner who ever did it in Chinese. It's really funny. Yeah, so it was really a good time. And of course, I met my future wife in China, and you know her well, Maya. There was a company that actually belonged to the state of German federal state. So it was the state of Baden-Württemberg in southwestern Germany. They, you know, Porsche, Daimler, SAP also all comes from that province, from that state. So we were helping a lot of car manufacturing companies and suppliers to set foothold in China. So I decided to quit the job. And it was really a very difficult time for me because I was standing in China with nothing. It's very difficult to apply for a job in China, because if you apply for a job in China, then you get a local salary loan. It's very difficult to get the expatriate package. So I would have had to travel back to Germany to get another job. But luckily at the time, I got another job offer, but this is very decisive, from a classmate of mine from university, and he offered me a job in a German food association. In the German Food Association, this association was in charge of helping German companies to export food to China and to Asia. Because the German food industry is very international and they always want to, of course, develop new markets. So the German food industry needed a rep office, a representative office in China to help them find business partners and, to do consulting for them. And yes, I joined that job, and that was fantastic. It was really the basis of what am I doing today, even today. That was in 2007. I got the job as a chief representative in Shanghai for the German Rooftop Association for the German food industries. And I was in charge of the Southeast Asian markets, Chinese markets. We were organizing a lot of food trade fairs, German participations at food trade fairs. And that went well for 2 years. For 2 years, because afterwards, and I'm now referring to Elina again, this association was disbanded. Associations are not an eternal thing, and there was a political decision in Germany to stop, to close down that association. So after 2 years of really setting up my camp and, getting into that job, I was again there with nothing. I was standing in Shanghai. I said, this can't be true. After 2 years, again, another job. And the only thing I had at the time was my experience in that job and my database. And at the time, I had a colleague in Germany. He was working in the head office, and he told me, Jan, I am now changing my job from this association, and I go to the Ministry of Agriculture. And we want to continue in the Ministry of Agriculture that work that you did before, and we need someone in China for that. And he said, set up your own business and earn the money independently. We'll get you the projects to do it. And I said, wow, this is fantastic. Why not? I was thinking back and forth, should I apply for another job? At that time, I wasn't very young anymore. I was 36, 37, and I said, this is already getting more difficult now. At this age, German companies, they want to hire young and willing people. So I decided, no, I just go for independence. And I had another experience, which then led me to change the place where I live in China. And I was just traveling with my parents to China. And I was going to the south of China at the time, which is Hainan Island. It's a tropical island in the South China Sea. It's actually the Hawaii of China, as they call it. And I was driving my car. I arrived on the island with the ferry in the early morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. I was listening to Wagner, to music from Wagner, from the componist, the German componist in the morning. The sun went up and I saw these tropical clouds. Wonderful. I said, wow, this is the place where I want to live the next few years. And I decided to move to that island. I was living in Eastern China before, and down to that island is about 2,000 kilometers. It's a big way. And I moved there with my then girlfriend and now wife, Maya. We lived there for 1 year. And then I got a job offer that I couldn't refuse in Germany. And I was thinking back and forth, should I do it? This island is beautiful. You have got tropical lifestyle. You can go surfing every day. You can, low cost of living. We were looking at the ocean every day. And then I got this offer from a German food company that offered me a job in Hamburg, in Germany. Fantastic. I mean, like really big package, a lot of money, your own company car, you name it, And I made the decision after 1 year on that island to go back to Germany with my wife and then wife already, and did that job for 3 months. And I went straight out of it. And I couldn't do it because I was already working as a freelancer before for 2 years. And even the jobs I did before in China, they were always very independent. We were always in small offices, 4 or 5 people maximum. And we were very free. And when I went back to that company and saw these rigid structures and this waste of time and resources, I couldn't take it, So I decided after 3 months, just moved back to Germany with a 40-foot container. Yeah, we moved back. We moved back to China, exactly to where we've been, to Hainan Island. And with my wife, we married in 2011. And yeah, it was a good choice. We stayed there. My son was born in the year when I was in Germany in 2012. He's a German citizen, of course. And then we moved back with my little son, who was only 3 months old, back to China and continued freelancing. And yeah, so we stayed on that island for about 4 years. My son went to international kindergarten, like a Canadian kindergarten in Sanya. So he has a basis in English. But after 4 years, we had to make another decision, because we looked at the international schools in China, and they are extremely expensive and very bad quality, actually. Like they sell you a package, they call it international school, but actually it's a Chinese school with English. So, the children had to stand there in the schoolyard every morning and sing the Chinese national anthem. And this is not what I call an international school. It's good for, I don't care. The Chinese, of course, they have to sing it. This is Chinese national anthem, but it's an international school. So I think you should rather change the national anthems every day. Maybe you learn the Russian or the German or the British, whatever. No? So it was rather, not what I wanted from the school, but you were paying international prices. This didn't fit. So I decided, okay, we have to leave, because we have to make a decision now what we do. And then we decided, okay, where do we go in the world? And my dream was always, and I'm coming back now to my childhood, to go to a Spanish-speaking country, because I loved Spain, I loved the language. And I looked at the globe and I said, okay, let's go back to Europe. We want, a little bit like, when you have a small child, maybe you want more safety, a bit like a better health system. So we said, okay, we go to Europe, but we want to have it warm in winter. And we said, Canary Islands, because there's nothing else warm in winter in Europe. So then we looked at the Canary Islands and said, okay, we want our son in a German school, bilingual school, German-Spanish bilingual school. And we looked at the islands, and there was only Tenerife and Gran Canaria, which had German, Spanish bilingual schools. And we went to both islands, checked out Tenerife, checked out Gran Canaria, and we found Gran Canaria beautiful. So we said, okay, go to Gran Canaria. Then we moved from Hainan Island to Gran Canaria in 2015 and stayed there for 4 years. My son went to kindergarten in Gran Canaria. My daughter was born in Las Palmas de Gran Canaria. And my son already also did his first school year here. And then, once of a sudden, we said, okay, we have to make a decision again in our life, because my son is now going to that school. Everything's beautiful. It's a vacation island. I could go surfing every day again. Good lifestyle. But first of all, I made up, an equation and just calculated how much the international school would cost me until the age of 18 if I have 2 children. I'm also missing out on the German subsidies for families. And that was like a number. I said, wow, this is ridiculous. I could go a 5-star vacation every year to where I want in the world. Let's go back. And also I made the decision that my parents, who live still here in my area, they're getting older. They're already like almost 80. And I want them to spend time with my children. And in the end, I also wanted to give my children a little bit of a home for some time, because we've been traveling around so much. And, we thought maybe for some time, we want to have home, like stay in one place. Yeah. And so in 2019, we just moved back to 3 kilometers from the village I grew up in. We're here now in this little village, 6 kilometers from the Dutch border, the 2,000 inhabitants, the kindergarten and the elementary school, they're just across the street. My children can just walk there. So it's very good. And also my wife loves it here. So at the moment, we are living here, based here, and let's see what the future brings. So this is actually my life, what I experienced in the last 30 years since, graduating from high school. And I would now like to go a little bit more into depth and share with you a little presentation about, what I did in the past. And I go back to the beginning, sorry. So I would call it now my long voyage to Asia-related freelancing from 1995 to now. I want to actually start with a Chinese proverb. And when we're talking about China, it is always like, you know, when you read or listen to the Western media, you get a very, I would say sometimes a very one-dimensional picture of China. And there is a Chinese saying, it's from the Western Han Dynasty, it's like 2,200 years old. It's 百闻不如一见. It means seeing it once for yourself is better than hearing about it 100 times. And this is my motto, because you have to travel places, you have to see the places, you have to talk to the people, if you're able to speak the language, or do it with your hands and feet, but you really have to feel the country. And this is why I say, when you talk about China, don't talk so much about politics and don't talk so much about what the media say. There's so much politics going on. I just want to show you a few pictures of how diverse and culturally rich China is. And I call it the mind-blowing diversity and complexity of China. This is, for example, just to show you some modern pictures. This is just Shanghai Hongqiao railway station. I mean, this doesn't look like a Western railway station, does it? This is so long, this building. It's just like one of the 4 or 5 big railway stations in Shanghai. It's like 300 meters across. This is Nanjing South Railway Station where I lived, you know, like it's incredible. Like the railway stations in China are just extremely modern, extremely well organized, not like the German railway stations actually. Yeah, and this is the Chinese bullet trains. They call them harmony, you know, Chinese love harmony actually, but it's all very modern. And the trains go very fast, you know, 345 kilometers in a normal train. This is the business class in a train, not in a plane. You know? Yeah, this is not Phuket. This is the place where I lived for 5 years. It's Sanya on Hainan Islands. It's tropical, it's modern, but it's also very, very undeveloped in some places. Good surfing, you know. And this is Nanjing, where I lived for 10 years. And it's a city, it's totally different. It's not by the sea, it's surrounded by mountains, but you see like the cityscape. It's very natural, you've got mountains, but you also got an incredible skyline. 50 million inhabitants, yeah. Just a picture of my time when I joined the local cycling club. I'm the half-naked guy in the middle. A lot of fun. And I was actually, I have to say, I was very integrated into the local Chinese community. I had a lot of Chinese friends. So that helped me a lot. This is a totally different picture. This was when I was traveling in China in 2018. This is in the Mongolian desert in northern China. You can see a statue of Genghis Khan in the back and a yurt, like a nomadic tent from the Mongols. This is a normal Chinese family gathering. That's my Chinese family in their home. That was in 2018, and you know, this is how they eat and how the place looks like. They always have pictures on the wall with some sayings like proverbs about harmony, or peace, about luck, about earning money, and then the food in the middle. It's always a round table because it's harmonious to sit together. Food piling over as always in China, because China is a country of food, and you know, it's always easy to talk about food with Chinese people. Totally different picture, like Shanghai. In this modern city, you have people transporting styrofoam on a bike like this, 3 meters across, 3 meters high, 3 meters across. Incredible. They work a whole day for minimal money, and it's just incredible, these contrasts that you see in China between the, you know, richness or the affluence, and then the people who really work their ass off and earn a little money. This is the West Lake in Hangzhou. There is a very famous musical that is performed on the water. The dancers are dancing on the water. There's just a stage underwater, and it's beautiful. This is Shanghai Tower from below. The highest building in China is 650 meters high, and this is how it looks, how Shanghai looks from above. This is, again, totally different. A Chinese class in the countryside. When I was living in China, we did some, you know, projects to enable Chinese children to go back to school, because a lot of families at the time couldn't afford to send their children to school. So we were fundraising among the foreign community money to support children from impoverished families. And you see, I mean, like these children, there's 50 children in one room. Look at their hands. They are wearing the gloves because they don't have heatings in their rooms. And it's -2 or 3 degrees, and they're sitting there the whole day, 10 hours in a row. And so a lot of them have like frostbite on their hands. So really, it's pretty tough. Okay, something totally different. Western China, you know, this is how they sell meat on the street, and we are back to the food subject, you know, like how meat is, displayed. A huge, I don't know what it is. I'm not sure now. It looks like a pork, but I don't think so. It's a lamb. It's a lamb because it was a Muslim area. This is not Uzbekistan. This is Hotan on the Southern Silk Road. So, you know, you think, where am I? You know, it's incredible. It's about 4,000 kilometers from Beijing, close to Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. But in China, this is in the Tibetan areas of China. You know, we cycled. I did a cycling trip for 3 weeks to the Tibetan mountains, and with a tent and everything. And, you know, the people come up, and normally you would be looking at these people because you think they are super original and super authentic, but no, they come looking at you because you are cycling a bike that they never saw before. You are a Westerner who never showed up in that area. So it's actually very interesting. Like, you know, old people enjoying their time in tea houses in China. This is what you used to see a lot in the past, not so much now anymore because China developed a lot. The Pamir Mountains, close to Pakistan, where we traveled, it's a totally different landscape again. So this is China. It's a very diverse country, and this is what I wanted to show you. But now, what do I do now? I talked about it a little bit before. I'm a freelancer now. I'm consulting German food companies, the German Ministry of Agriculture, and German food associations on entering the Chinese and Southeast Asian market. So my focus is Asia and especially China. And my business is actually not location-based. I could be working from anywhere in the world. So I call myself a freelancer with a potential for digital nomadism. You know, I could be a digital nomad, but of course I got 2 small children attending school. So I'm a little bit fixed now to Germany, but my business itself, I could do it from anywhere. And I have a very small overhead. It's only myself, myself, and I. I need my computer, I need internet, and well, just my brain. I don't need anything else. I have a good life-work balance. I'm not overworking myself. I can choose which projects I do at the moment. So I would say it's normally 4 hours a day. So I'm happy with that. And it's enough for me to get along. It's enough for me to get along because, yeah, so let's see. Why do I do this work now? You know, the German food industry, as all the other industries, are very international, and they try to diversify away from the European markets, which are getting more and more competitive. As you know, like the prices for food are so low, no one is willing to pay a lot for food. So they're looking at new markets, and Asia and especially China is a very important market. For example, when we look at the stats, like German food exports to China rose 20 times between 2008 and now, 20 times. There's a lot. And we are facing a big competition from Western competitors like, of course, you know, European countries, France, Spain, Netherlands, Denmark, but also like the United States, New Zealand, Australia. Everyone wants to export to China because it's such a big market now. And, you know, like for this, I, you know, offer a lot of services to German companies. It's marketing for their products, for German food in general, beer and sausages, wine, dairy products, delicatessen, organic food, functional food, everything. We do the PR, which means we contact a lot of Chinese media or East Asian media and try to launch articles in their magazines in Chinese or in the local language. I help, with contact facilitation. I have a big database of Chinese and Asian food importers, food distributors, supermarkets, food associations, legal experts, media, associations, government departments, and I always try to build and expand my database. We also consult on food regulations, how to import, for example, German meat to China, what you have to bear in mind, which certifications you need, and so on. And this is very funny part, we organize Bavarian food promotions. So really authentic German Bavarian food promotions. I'm going to show you a few pictures in a few seconds. It's a lot of fun. So what I do is I help the German Ministry of Agriculture to organize so-called official joint trade fair participations in Germany. So the German government, they set up a pavilion for German food companies. And the German food companies, they can join this pavilion and exhibit their products. And I organize the acquisition work, matchmaking with the local trade partners. I do press interviews and organize press interviews between the local press and the German companies. I organize store checks, which is a lot of fun. We take the German companies and go into the wet markets in China, the supermarkets in China, and check how much do the products cost. For example, honey. We got a German honey producer. They want to know how much the honey costs in China and maybe even the competitors' products. We do receptions with the German consulates or the German embassies in Asia and invite all trade partners, media, German exhibitors and everything. We do seminaries on food import related stuff, and we do press conferences. I also organize political visits from the German Ministry of Agriculture. For example, if the German Minister of Agriculture wants to visit China, then we organize that stuff, and of course, as I said, we organize Bavarian food promotions in Thailand, Hong Kong, and China mostly. And yeah, so I show you some pictures from that. Examples of my work. This is how show cooking looks like. In China, I'm on the left. That was in 2013. We went to a trade fair in northeastern China, set up a German pavilion, and we did some show cooking. And I did the MOC, the Master of Ceremony, and I was translating and handing out the food. And you look at the people, they were so, I want to try, because they never tried German food before. And it was incredible. In the end, we needed police protection because there were so many people, they were pushing our pavilion to the side. It's no joke. We got about 150 persons pushing from one side. And in the end, the police had to form a corridor so that the people could orderly take their food, otherwise it's just crazy. And this was just a huge success. It was a lot of fun, but also a little bit scary because the whole pavilion was just shaking. So this is another show cooking example in Shanghai, shot from an overhead camera. This is a German joint participation at Seoul Food and Hotel in South Korea in 2013. We also go to South Korea, which is a very different market. South Korea is already very developed, and the people have a lot of money, and they want to eat either German delicatessen or they want to eat certain kinds of pork meat. They are very interested in the belly meat from the pork. So you see here in the front, a German meat producer, Gausepol, he's exhibiting their pork products. Yeah, this is very interesting. We did the first ever German food participation in Myanmar in 2014. And you won't believe it, this trade fair hall was underwater 5 days before we went there. Underwater because they had huge monsoon rains at the time, that was in June, and the whole place was underwater. So we had to, they had to clear the building, unbuild everything, wipe everything, and then the water receded and they built up everything again. But outside of the building, we could only walk from trade fair hall to trade fair hall on a bridge or through water, because the water level was still so high. So this is when you do trade fairs in out of the way countries, I say, like Myanmar. It's crazy. But it was a good show. Yeah, this is where I introduced German food juices to Thai customers at a Thai food show. just very interesting. The people, they are very interested in trying new tastes. And this is a very high-end brand. They sell their bottles in the Thai market for about 10 euro a bottle. 10 euro a bottle. This is a totally different thing. This is Thai marketing. Like when the Thai market, the chili sauce, that looks like, a pavilion looks like that. Very, very authentic, very local style. You know, when we try to sell stuff, we try to sell it more the German way, like, you know, very serious, business-like. The Thai, they really try to appeal to the customer in a very emotional way, but also very interesting. This is a Thai food show scene. They like these little figures in the food shows. They're running around and promoting other products. This is a European pork pavilion at ThaiFex 2018. You know, the Thais love cartoons. They love manga. They love these figures running around the trade fairs. It's very special. I'm introducing the German pavilion. You see the big made in Germany in the back, to the Thai press, you know, explaining what it is all about German food, you know, very serious with the Thai and everything. And this is where we do where we do a Bavarian food promotion in Thailand. And you see there's a lot of interest from the media. It's incredible. And you see here now, this is the stage that we build up together with a supermarket in Thailand, and we have a Thai-German model giving interviews in Thai about, you know, the advantages of Bavarian food. But it's fantastic. The Thais love it. She's a social media star. You know, she's got like maybe 200, 300,000 followers, and, you know, she's promoting our stuff. So it's great. Yeah, here, you know, this is the Schuhplattler, the Bavarian traditional dance, and you won't believe it, but they have Schuhplattler dance groups in Thailand. Thai people dancing this stuff, and we hired them to do this dance. Okay, you could call it cultural appropriation, but it is a lot of fun, and the Thais love it. This is also a music troupe in Thailand performing like traditional Bavarian music for the opening ceremony of the Bavarian food promotion. This is the Thai-German school in Bangkok. With the children, they got Thai children, they got mixed race children, they got German children, and they were performing, they were singing songs like German children's songs for our promotions. And they had a lot of fun. Thai models again, Thai-German models promoting Bavarian products. You know, we got Bavarian show cooking with models and a German show cook. And this is totally different now. This is again a German joint participation in Singapore. This is the newest German pavilion design that we have now. That is already in 2020 during COVID. I couldn't travel to the trade fairs. Normally I travel to the trade fairs and organize everything in the city where the trade fair takes place. But because of all the pandemic and the quarantine regulations in place now in Asia, since 2020, the beginning of 2020, my usual business has actually stopped. So maybe I just also talk a little bit about that at the moment. You know, normally I do my work remotely. So I prepare the whole projects I do. Maybe 70% of my work time I do abroad where I am, for example, in Spain or in Germany. But 30% of the time I will go or I will spend at the place where the trade fair takes place or where I organize the food promotion. And I always traveled a lot every year. You know, Robert, when I was in Las Palmas, I was traveling back and forth, like maybe 10 intercontinental flights between Europe and Asia a year. So I was really traveling a lot. And I stayed at this trade fair. So, but because of the pandemic now, I can't travel anymore. So what we do now, I do a lot of things remotely, 100% remotely now. I organize the pavilions remotely. I have local partners who help me with the stuff that I want to do. I organize the matchmakings from here, and I got people over there who implement it for me. When I do the store checks, I organize the receptions, everything remotely for the time being. So, of course, the pandemic was a huge hit for me. My income went down a lot. I would say that 70%, 60 to 70% of my original income. And I'm doing meat business now as well. And we are mostly selling byproducts meat byproducts to China that no one else in the West would be eating. You know, the Chinese, they have different eating habits. They wouldn't eat a fillet because a fillet for them is like dry, dead meat. There's no taste to it, you know. The Chinese love byproducts, for example, intestines. They like the pork snouts, the, you know, little ears, the flaps, the, you know, whatever, aorta, like the aorta, pork aorta. So they love that stuff. In Germany, no one is eating that. So before the German meat industry, they were either disposing the meat off or they were producing it into dog meat. It's no joke, dog meat. But then they thought, oh, the Chinese love it. And why don't we sell it to China? And they get higher prices for pork byproducts or beef byproducts or chicken feet than they get for chicken fillet or pork fillet or beef fillet in China. So it's a big business, and the German industry is very interested in the Chinese market. We are talking now about 2 billion euro, only pork byproducts. So only intestines and the like from Germany to China every year. This is the official number. There's a lot of more stuff going to China. I would say it's about maybe 10 billion euro every year going into China. So it's big business, and I'm doing that business now for the time being, where I can't travel into China that much or into Asia that much. So I'm very happy about that. Well, yeah, a few more pictures now about what I do, like seminary about food import regulations in Hong Kong. And here I'm, you know, talking to a Hong Kong travel blogger, and enjoying German yogurt with her. And she wrote articles. She has a big following in Hong Kong. And she wrote about the product itself, but also traveling. So I supplied her with a lot of travel-related information in the area where the yogurt is actually produced. So yeah, that's very interesting to talk to these people. Here's an article in a Chinese newspaper, in a sweets magazine about German sweets. You know, they interviewed me and they wrote about it in Chinese. And usually I do the interviews in Chinese, of course, which is very easy for the people then, you know, to follow me and to ask questions. Because if you do it in English, first of all, the scope narrows down immediately of the people who can interview you, and also being able to speak Chinese to the people, you can talk to them directly, and it's a totally different level of communication. Here, interesting German wine. I mean, you don't really think about German wine normally. You think about German beer, but here we have a German wine pavilion at ProWein Shanghai 2019 with about 40 exhibitors exhibiting Riesling and all these beautiful wines from Germany. Actually, I have to admit, I'm a horrible cook, but I also do a lot of show cooking. I help, you know, with the show cooking. And here I try my very best at the Bavarian promotion at City Shop Shanghai. We have Chinese customers who try to learn how to do German food. Here we have a German food festival in Hong Kong, also exhibiting German products. And here we got like Bavarian ginger hearts presentation. You know, it's the people love it because it's so exotic for people in Asia to see this stuff with, you know, written German on it, or we could also write Chinese on it. But anyways, like, this is a very Bavarian thing, these ginger hearts made out of gingerbread. And there is a saying written on it, I love you, or, you know, whatever. So this is really a big hit with the people, and we did that presentation. Here, another show cooking at Food Beijing in 2018. You see the interest from the people. They love to try new food. And this is a totally different thing. Meat transport in Shanghai. I think it's lamb. Looks like lamb, but I'm not sure. So, but this is like, we looked at these guys carrying the lamb and they put it into the trunk of the car. But you know, Chinese meat is normally fried at high temperature, so no issue, you know, like you just transport it and you just fry it. And normally, I have to say, it looks horrible to transport it that way, but I actually never had stomach problems in China, never, ever. That's the way they do the food. It's actually very good. The only time I had stomach problems in China was when they were doing Western food. Pizza, ice cream, ooh, don't eat Western food in China. It's dangerous sometimes because the people know how to do their own food, but with Western food, you have to be careful sometimes. Chinese food, never a problem. This is a Chinese wet market in China. And look at the time. I visited this wet market in November 2019, so 2 months before the pandemic hit. Now they say that the pandemic started already maybe in October So it was already circulating. This is the way they sell meat in China normally. Of course, you have modern supermarkets in China, and they're getting more and more. But actually, you go to the countryside, and this is how meat is sold in China. Maybe even more in a more rustic way. So yeah, just like it's eye-opening when you look at it. You got the super modern China, and then you got like wet markets in China, and this is just a contrast that you see in China every day. Yeah, so this was interesting because we were visiting this market with the German meat producers, and they love to visit Chinese wet markets because they can get an idea of what the Chinese customer wants, the product he wants, and also how meat is sold in China. You have to know it. So yeah, these were all German meat producers that actually, yeah, I had a look at it. So this is a totally different thing here now. We are, Aldi is a German supermarket chain, and they ventured into the Chinese market in 2019, and this is their first store in Shanghai. And this is the general manager of Aldi China. He's Australian, by the way, and he's introducing to us the concept of Aldi in China. And when you look at Aldi in China and Aldi in Germany or in other countries in Europe, you see a big difference. Aldi in Europe is like low budget, like, on trays and very simple supermarkets. Here, look at this. This is the alcohol presentation of Aldi in China. It looks like an upmarket supermarket. Aldi in China has a totally different concept of selling stuff to the customers. They know that they can't compete with the Chinese discounters, so they go upmarket. It's a very interesting approach to, how you position yourself in the market. This is when I talked to the first German television, ARD, at Xi'an in Shanghai. They wanted to know a little bit about, what the German food industry produces, what they export to China, what the difficulties are. And so this was an interview that I was giving to the German media. This is an opening of a Bavarian food promotion in Shanghai. This is a cooking class that we organized with Chinese key customers, key accounts, I would say, like power shoppers. Cooking classes. This is a presentation in China of Bavarian beer. This is my own Chinese language marketing. I post a lot of stuff in Chinese media, social media, for example, WeChat. When you do marketing in China, obviously, you can't do it on the traditional channels that you use in the West, like Facebook, Google, Instagram, whatever, because, of course, it's all blocked in China. So they have their own social media network and, I would say, universe. It's totally separate, and they have got pretty much everything that we have in the West, they have in China. And for example, they even have more sometimes. For example, the WeChat that I'm posting this post about the Bavarian promotion is actually a combination of Facebook, Instagram, PayPal, online banking. It's a universe of social media and also apps within apps that they call it the micro apps. It's a concept that we do not really have in the West. For example, it would be like as if you use Facebook, and Facebook has an app within the app enabling you to do your online banking. So it would be a sub app in Facebook from your local bank. And this enables the social media provider, in this case WeChat, to get a lot of data about you. They know which train tickets you're buying, what bus tickets you're buying, what your favorite food is. It's incredible. Like for a social media company, this is of incredible value. And you don't have that in the West. And also WeChat is the payment system in China. It's a digital payment system. You can convert Chinese yuan RMB into WeChat currency, 1-to-1. And you can pay everything in China with that app. You can, the Chinese came up with QR codes in 2013 when no one in the West knew what QR codes were. And they were using it at the time to start paying digitally. And now it leads to the situation that actually in China, no one uses normal currency anymore. The people don't have any money in their pockets anymore. They pay through the app. They pay train tickets, bus tickets, plane tickets. They pay the local supermarket. They even pay the beggars on the street. The beggars on the street, they have their own QR codes. You can swipe the QR code and pay him 10 cents, €1, whatever you want. It's incredible. It's incredibly convenient, but at the same time, it's incredibly scary because this company knows everything about you. And I'm still waiting for this kind of app to materialize in the West. I cannot really explain what it means to the Chinese, but I think it would be best if you try the app and see what you can do with it. But you have to be in China for that, because using this app only makes sense really when you communicate with a lot of Chinese audience and when you pay in China. And paying with that app is so convenient, it's just incredible. But you have to do it to know what it means. Well, anyway, this about, I'm getting caught away here by the functions of WeChat. But it's just like this. So we continue. This is now my normal battle station. This is the info counter at trade fairs. At that time, I was in Food and Hotel Hanoi in Vietnam. So it's a totally different market. It's next to China, but it's a totally different market in terms of products you sell. And it has a different history, of course. They are very open to French products, obviously. For German products, it's much more difficult to sell in Vietnam. This is where I'm the master of ceremony at a press conference of the German Poultry Association in China, because the German Poultry Association wants to sell chicken feed to China, and they want to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Chinese government to enable German poultry producers to sell their products to China. And we did a press conference for the Chinese government and for the Chinese press to show how safe and reliable German poultry products are. This is another memorandum of understanding signing ceremony that I organized between the German Meat Association and the Chinese government about the import of pork meat. This is how you market your pork meat in China. They love the snouts, the pork snouts. Just a picture. Here we're doing store checks in a wine franchise in China. She's actually German. And it's very interesting, she opened a franchise in China alone. And she's got like 50 stores now all over China. They're selling imported wines. And it's a fantastic concept. She's very successful. And so we went there with a group of German wine producers to show how German wines are marketed in China. She's very savvy in social media, in Chinese social media. And so it's a very interesting way to market the wine, not in the traditional way like in a supermarket, but it's really like a social media approach that she is driving. This is a totally different thing. Our Minister of Agriculture and the German ambassador in Beijing holding a speech that we organized for the Chinese press. Here we're doing another wine tasting. And this is interesting, the German School Beijing. We organized a big German pavilion at the Horticultural Expo 2019 in Beijing. It's not about food, but it's about German agricultural technology and sustainable solutions that we want to show the Chinese how to, for example, do city greening, sustainable agriculture, and architecture. And all of this we were showcasing at this trade fair. Why did I do it? Because I have very good relationship to the German Minister of Agriculture, and that they are not only responsible for food trade fairs, but also responsible for horticulture and agriculture related trade fairs and exhibitions. And that was a huge project that was running for about half a year. And this is the German pavilion they built outside at the exhibition center northwest of Beijing. It's a huge project. I think it was one of the biggest projects the Ministry of Agriculture ever did abroad. And it was very successful because you see the Chinese are queuing up here. Crazy. Like we had waiting times. You see in the back on the left side that people are queuing up even more on the way. So it took them about an hour to get into the German pavilion. Due to safety regulations, obviously we couldn't let in all the people into the pavilion, but just one by one. And the people had to queue up for an hour to get into the German pavilion. Yeah, but it was really an interesting project, something totally different from what I don't normally do. I was the vice commissioner general for that pavilion. So we did a lot of interesting stuff. We met people that we normally don't meet. Yeah, and here our minister also came to China, and she's answering questions from the press. Yeah, so this is what I did do in China, or I'm doing in China, I did in China. But now I want to get a little bit more theoretical about how you do business in China. This is just a very short version of what I'm normally doing when I'm, sending some intercultural advice to German companies how to behave in China. It's very, very short. But I want to say a few sentences, like two words that you have to bear in mind when you go to China. One is called 中国通. This is the old China hand. When a Chinese calls you 中国通, then you are really, then you know about everything in China. You know how to behave, how to get around, and they say it normally with a tone of admiration. When you say 中国通, you're a 中国通, then you have done it. You understand everything. If they call you 老外, it might mean something like a foreigner, or like bloody beginner, like something like that. So it depends on what you say. It means maybe you don't really understand about China, you're a funny guy, a little bit ridiculous. It depends on the connotation. So yeah, the thing is, when I talk about China, I really have a problem about talking about China in a general way. I call it the time generalization paradoxon. This is my own theory. I say the longer you stay in a place, the less you can say about a country in a general way. When you have spent 1 hour in a place, sometimes you think, oh, I know this place. I can say the people are like this, the people are like that. When you spend and you can write a whole book about the place. When you spend a year, you say, this is already getting difficult. I don't know how to write about the place. The people are so different. You meet all kinds of people, and it's really hard to generalize. And when you have spent 10 years in a country, you can't write anything anymore about the country. And I spent 15 years in China, and I was really traveling back and forth for about 20 years in total. And I'm really having problems now about saying anything general about China. It wouldn't be fair. But I try to give you a few concepts about what how China is differing from many Western countries. This doesn't mean that China is black and the West is white. We got these concepts in the West as well, but maybe they're not so predominant. I start with the system of 人治, the rule of man, and 关系, the relations, and 法治, the legal system. What we have in the West is actually a legal system. In the West, we have a concept of a legal system. So you always have the same rights. Every person has the same rights. You can go to court. You have a legal background or legal support. So the country is ruled by the laws. In China, traditionally, the country wasn't ruled by laws, but by emperors, a feudal system where the emperor decided, and of course, all his government official decided. So it was a system where they didn't really have a codex of laws, but rather a rule of man. The emperor decided how it should be, and he wasn't bound by a legal system that we have in the West. This also means that everything that you do in society is decided by your relationships of people who are higher in the hierarchy or lower in the hierarchy to you. This is very hard to explain, but in China, when you do business, for example, you always try to accumulate relations, 关系. You do that in the West as well. Of course, if you have a good relationship to people, then everything makes it more simple. But in China, it's really predominant. You try to collect relationships to government officials, to other people that might be of use to you in a later time. So the people, they always try to accumulate these relationships. And these relationships will help you in business in many, many occasions. When you don't have these relationships and you only rely on a contract, say, For example, you sign a contract with a company, the company doesn't pay, you think, oh, I have a right, I'm suing them. For the company itself, maybe they think, you did something wrong in the relations to the company, so they don't pay you. It's really important to have good relations with all your people that you do business with. So it's a very different system. Also, what is very important in China is the concept of zhongyong, moderation. The Chinese people, they don't like extremism. Like they don't like, for example, to show for example, your mood in a very extreme way. Don't shout, don't scream, don't cry. It's always good to stay in the middle, to stay what they say, this face that they keep. You don't really show your emotions that much. The Chinese do show emotions, but they always try to moderate. Humbleness, 谦虚 is another concept. The Chinese really appreciate, especially from foreigners when they come to China, to be humble, which means when they say, wow, you speak good Chinese, you say, oh, my Chinese is so bad. You never say thank you. If you say thank you, or you even say, yes, I know, it's absolutely horrible. You would never say that. You say, oh, my Chinese is so bad and I really have to improve. So this is what they like. When you say, I'm so good, you would actually lose face. You would actually lose face because you would overblow your ego. So this is a concept that is also very important in China. And the thing is, this is all the theoretical concepts, and we can talk about it later in the questions and answers. But the practice is, when you do business in China, it's not like, for example, in the West, you find a company on the internet, right? Wow, you talk to them a little and then you sign a contract and you demand from them that they keep that contract, because if they don't, you go to court, you sue them. In China, doing business means building relationships. You're not doing anything else than building relationships over time, and it takes time. So I always say, for example, to the German food companies, if you want to do business in China, count on 5 to 10 years, building relationships with Chinese buyers, with companies, build trust with them. It takes a long time. China is not like a legal system that we have in the West. The whole business is more in an unofficial way, or it's not so enshrined by contracts and by law and everything. But everything is built on trust in China, and recommendations by other companies and word by mouth. You listen. How is that company doing business? How are they? You meet the people. You meet them. You talk about everything, about God and the world and everything. You eat with them. You drink alcohol with them, which is a very important part of doing business in China. Over a long time, then you build these relationships. Also, in the West, we have a system where hierarchy is now less and less important, especially as freelancers. We are really one-man shows. We are on the same level. We are not so much in traditional company structures. But in China, hierarchy is very important in business. One example, when you, for example, meet a person, or like you are with a delegation, and you meet another delegation in China, then the highest ranking person or the oldest person goes first and shakes hands with the highest ranking person in the Chinese delegation. Never ever would you, as a young person, lower in a hierarchy, go to the front and shake hands with that person. So this all goes to hierarchy. And then the second level of hierarchy shakes hands. You have to know exactly what the hierarchy of the other side is, of the other persons. And then you know how to proceed, the structure, how to introduce yourself. When you sit down, you also sit according to hierarchy. The Chinese people, when they have a meeting, they sit in front of each other, right? On a long table, one side the Chinese side, and the other side the German side. In the middle of the other side is the highest ranking Chinese person. In the middle of our side is the highest ranking German person. And then all the other people to the side get less and less important. So this is how you sit down. And when you eat, it's the same. Normally you have an eating order, sitting order. Like every person This is a big part of my job when I organize a meeting or like an evening, like a dinner. And we have to think about how to sit the Chinese persons, where the most important person is, then where is the most important person from our side. And then the corresponding people have to sit in front, across from each other. It's really difficult because sometimes you've got people ranking on the same level, and then you have to know a lot of extra information. Are they, for example, did they do a PhD or did they do a master or whatever? Have they been abroad? It's ridiculous. And some people have relationships that you have to bear in mind when you sit down, when these people sit down. Maybe he doesn't have a very high ranking position, but he has very strong relationships. Then you have to push him higher up in the hierarchy. And this is very, very complicated. And you can really make a lot of mistakes with that. So normally we do this by asking our Chinese colleagues. I wouldn't be able to do it 100%. I would make mistakes, and you do make mistakes. Formalities are very important. Normally gifts are exchanged. For example, when you meet a Chinese delegation, it is important you shake hands in the Western way. It's not like in Japan where you bow. You never bow in China. When you do that, it's a loss of face because bowing is Japanese way of doing things. And China and Japan have a very complicated relationship. And so you never do that. So you shake hands, but when you shake hands, you don't shake hands very hard, like in the Western Rockefeller, like, this is my power, In China, you give hands very softly, very softly and shake it long. And if you really want to emphasize how much you appreciate the other person, you take the second hand and put it on their hand as well. And then you exchange business cards. I could go on and on now. You exchange business cards, not by just throwing the business cards on the table. This would be a lot of loss of face and very much disrespect. You give the business cards with two hands. And when you are lower in the hierarchy than the other person, you give it from below. And exchange, you swap the cards from the other person. It's a very complicated procedure. You see this movement that I'm doing. You give your business card turned around 90 degrees so the other person can read it, push it up, and take the other business card from above. And so you can read it. And then you read the business card. You don't put it in your pocket. You just read it and you say something. Oh, you have been there. You have a PhD. Oh, this is a very interesting Chinese character. This is a very interesting work you do, whatever. You exchange some small talk. And then this is okay. You sit down, for example, for food. And then it starts, and this is where I get into the next subject. Traditional culture, food, small talk. When you sit down and you start with drinking alcohol. And this is a very interesting, important topic in China. When you drink alcohol, normally you drink schnapps, like really hard alcohol, 60 degrees. So I would always recommend you say, I'm German or I'm Czech in this case. For example, we are a beer nation. I must drink beer. This is very good. This gives you a strategic advantage because the Chinese, they will always give you face, drink one-on-one, one-to-one. So it means when you drink one glass of beer, they will drink one glass of schnapps, which puts them in a very disadvantageous situation when they have been drinking 10 glasses of schnapps. Then they are, they drop down. So actually, when they start drinking, normally the Chinese side will cheers to the highest ranking official on the German side, or to the highest ranking persons. They clash their glasses. And when you are lower ranking than the other side, you clash the glass lower than the other person. So the glasses will hit like this. Here, I'm lower, so I have to hit the other person's glass lower. If you hit it higher, loss of face, bad. And then you down the glass. You never say, I only drink part of it, because if you drink part of it, it means that your feelings towards the other person are only very shallow. So the Chinese say, 感情深一口门，感情浅一点, which means if your feelings towards me are deep, you down the whole thing. If your feelings to me are very shallow, you only nip at your glass. Yeah. So this is a way of giving face to the other person. I tell you something, it sounds like fun, but it's so hard work. I am exhausted after every Chinese dinner because you have to bear in mind so many things, and it's actually rather stiff because you cannot just, and this is the next faux pas that you can do, when you take your glass and drink alcohol on your own, it's a loss of face. You never do that. You always drink with other people, and you always cheers to other people, right? And you have to cheers to every person on the table. You start with the highest ranking person and then you go to the lower persons. Maybe they also cheers you. They say cheers to you. So you end up with drinking a lot of alcohol in the evening. So if you don't want to drink any alcohol, you say, okay, I'm sorry, I'm on medication. This is also a very good thing that you can say. Say I'm on a medication, I can't drink. They accept it. But if you say, I'm German, I only drink beer, then you have to drink beer. If there are 20 people sitting at the table, then you have to drink at least 20 glasses of beer until you crash. But this is okay. Crashing in China is not a loss of face. You can be absolutely drunk and wasted. It's not a loss of face. The Chinese will carry you home. It's okay. So yeah, and then when you eat, this is also one thing. When you eat, the Chinese, they will always serve a lot of food. When they invite you, they will serve a lot of food, and it will be piling up in 2 or 3 layers on the table. You will never be able to finish that food, and you should never finish food. You always leave something on the table or on your plate, because if you don't leave it on the table or on your plate, it means the Chinese host didn't give you enough food. And then they will order more food. So never finish your food in China. It's an absolute loss of face. You make the host lose face if you eat up your food. You always leave something on your table or your plate. And also, what you should be aware of, always eat all food you can eat in China. Like, you have to try at least a little bit from every food that is on the table. You cannot say, I can't eat. You can say, okay, I'm vegan or I'm vegetarian, then they will understand. But if you don't say that, you have to try everything, a little bit of everything. You don't have to eat a lot, but just try everything. And they will also offer you the stuff that you didn't try. This is one thing, and also how you use your chopsticks. If you go to China, learn to use chopsticks. It will enable you to not starve. You won't starve. But if you don't use chopsticks, eating will be very difficult, because especially in the local places, not in the big cities, there's no knives or forks, spoons. So learn how to use chopsticks, otherwise you will lose a lot of weight. And also, when you use your chopsticks, right, you don't put them, you don't stick them into your food. Never stick them into your food. Like, for example, in Germany, you leave your whatever knife on the plate or stick it into whatever. You don't leave them stick into your food, because that is a funeral ritual in China. For the dead, you serve a bowl of rice with chopsticks sticking in the rice. And if you just stick your chopsticks into the rice in a business dinner in China, it's a big loss of face. I was talking about gifts. Last thing about gifts. When you give gifts in China, never give watches and never give knives. And never give anything that is related to the numbers 3 or 4. Give something which is related to the number 6 or 8 or 7 or 9. Because, first of all, if you give a gift that is a knife, it means I want to kill you or kill yourself. In traditional Chinese culture, if you give a watch, it means, okay, I'm counting the hours until you die. Never give a watch, even if it's a Rolex, never give a watch. If you give something that is related to the number 3, for example, you give 3 pairs of 3 oranges, right? It means we are going to separate, because the number 3 in China is pronounced sun, and the same word that is pronounced sun means 3, sun means to separate. So if you give something with the number 3, it means I want to separate from you. For example, a business relationship will be severed. If you give something with the number 4, si means 4. Si means to die. So I want you to die. If you give something with the number 6, it means you are going to earn a lot of money. If you give something with the number 8, I could continue. It means you earn a lot of money, or you will develop. Because 8, ba is 8. It sounds like fa, and fa is like to develop. And if you give something like 9, for example, 9 means eternity, is good, because you say our business will last on forever. Or in a love relationship, you give 9 roses, you say our love will last on forever. And 7 is also a good number because it means to rise. Qi means to rise, but qi is 7. So it's always they're playing with these sounds, And this is also so dangerous in Chinese language. When you talk Chinese and you pronounce something not correctly, it's absolutely backfiring because the people understand something totally different. So this is really, really bad, actually. So the most important thing about China is to master the tones, not to be able to talk a lot of words or to know a lot of words, but the tones are really important. Yeah, so this is about, the practice. As I said, Shi Wei Xian, when I talked about food, the Chinese love to talk about food, and they think China is the heaven for foodies. So food is never a bad topic in China. You can talk about food. When you are working in a Chinese company, the people talk about lunch at 10 in the morning. They talk about what might they get for lunch at noon, and they start to water their mouth and getting really excited. So it's a good topic. But of course, on the other hand, there's a lot of taboo topics in China that stem from politics, of course. Politics is never a good topic, but I think it's never a good topic anywhere if you do small talk. You stay on a very, shallow level, and it's nice. It's not, you shouldn't talk about taboo topics in the beginning. Maybe later, when you get to know the persons better, you have to go get to know them very well, then you can talk about taboo topics as well. But wait for the Chinese to bring up the topic and be very sensitive. And of course, there are traditional topics, not political topics, but traditional topics that are also, you don't talk about it. You don't talk about dead people, about disease. You talk about positive things. The Chinese, they always want to bring up positive things. So when they talk about Germany, for example, number Germany is football, German Bundesliga, Bayern Munich, German cars, German engineering, German beer. These are super good topics to talk about. The Chinese love to talk about it. And mostly they know better about German football than I do, because I'm not really into German football. So, you step into a Chinese car in a taxi in Shanghai, and the driver talks about, about the results yesterday from the German Bundesliga, and this guy was fouled and he got a red card and whatever. And I say, I'm sorry, I don't know about it at all. So they're really into football. And when you watch the European Soccer Championships, pay attention, you will always see Chinese advertising on the other side. I think half of the advertising is in Chinese now, because from that you can see how many Chinese are watching the European Soccer Championships. They are incredible. Like, I don't know, maybe 200 million people are watching it in China. And they're getting up at night, 3 or 4 in the morning, and they were watching it. It's incredible. So they are really big fans of German Bundesliga, but also of the Premier League, of La Liga. And so it's always a good topic to talk about. Anyway, I talked about business dinners already, about alcohol, about karaoke. Karaoke is the next step. If you have been to a business dinner and you have been drinking alcohol, then the next step is they will ask you, you want to go to karaoke? And then you ask, which karaoke? There's 2 kinds of karaoke. There's the karaoke and a little bit dodgy karaoke. So always make sure that you go to the karaoke, which means you only sing songs. Which means you sing songs. It's a lot of fun, but you should be outgoing, like you should say, okay, I feel comfortable with singing songs. Now, even if you don't feel comfortable, just sing them, even if you can't sing. Saying, I don't sing a song is a loss of face for the host. But if you sing and you don't sing well, it's giving him face, because he knows you're a bad singer, but he's a better singer. So go to the karaoke. It's a lot of fun, and try to drink a little bit, because you need drinking to moisten your voice. And, they will search for like some English songs from the 60s, 70s, 50s, some Beatles songs, whatever. They have some old school songs in the Chinese karaoke. So it's a lot of fun, and it's very informal. When the business dinner before was very formal, you go to karaoke, you can get really informal. And this is also the occasion for the Chinese to get to know you better, and where you can talk about very, very, a lot of small talk. You can have fun. And it's really important to build a personal relationship to your business partner. When you, this is just a little thing, you don't tip in China, right? China is a non-tipping country. If you leave money on the table after a business dinner, it's an insult for the people. because it means, well, you're not getting enough money, and I give you some extra money. And the people will come running after you, giving back the money. So tipping is a big no-go in China, unless you are in an area or in a restaurant where they have a lot of foreigners. Then they are accustomed to tipping. But if you're in the Chinese countryside, they won't understand tipping. This is really weird concept for them. Well, this is about, yeah, just like my rough guide to doing business in China. I already talked about the whole thing, how I got to where I am now. I chose a language, big language like Chinese, and I added a few of bread and butter subjects like law and economy, and did a scholarship in China, which helped me a lot to really be able to fluently talk in Chinese. I did internships in China, of course. I did my diploma and PhD on the job. I was working in a German company at the time and used this company as a platform to do my diploma and my PhD. I did consulting in the beginning, as I said. I did consulting, and the decisive thing was that I switched from general consulting to food consulting. And I was working in that food association as a chief representative in China, and it enabled me to get relationships. Now we're talking about relationships again. I got relationships with the German Ministry of Agriculture, with all the associations, and I could use them later on as a freelancer. I didn't start from scratch, but I had my contact database. Now I have more than 20 years of work experience, 15 of them in China. And now I set up my freelancing business 11, 12 years ago. 5 of those years in China and 7 in Spain and in Germany. And of course, I was lucky. I was lucky to meet the right people on the way. I was lucky to choose freelancing. I would never go back now to a company, even if they give me a big package. I wouldn't go back. I love my freelancing. I love the freedom that it gives to me, and I love the work-life balance that I have. So my take on the whole thing is, when you are not yet freelancing, I say be courageous, leave your comfort zone. There's so much to explore, and you are much better than you think. You can really go out of yourself. You can develop business everywhere. If you try to meet people, if you're really open and outgoing, go abroad, because going abroad means you broaden your horizon. Don't only stay in your country. You will find new business. And this is, for me, this is very important. Find your niche. I found my niche, actually. What I'm doing is a very niche job. There's no one else doing the stuff that I do in Germany. No one else. We have consulting companies, but they don't do the same stuff as I do. There's no one doing the same thing. We could talk to the German Chamber of Commerce, but they do totally different stuff. They don't offer this array of services that I do. So I'm very happy, because, when the ministry needs an idiot to do the job, then they ask me, Important thing now in retrospect, because of the pandemic, is keeping the overhead low. I always kept a low overhead. I only have my Mac computer here or a laptop. I need my mobile phone, I need internet, and I need a telephone line. And the rest is all in my computer. Like, this is my database, and here my brain. And yeah. This is the thing. I keep the overhead low, because if I wouldn't have kept my overhead low, I would be in a totally different situation now because of the pandemic. The pandemic led to the situation that I lost 70% of my income last year. And I have such a low overhead that, that was okay for me. I can sit it out. I can wait out the storm. And I hope that next year everything will go back to normal, and I can be traveling again to trade fairs in Asia. So the low overhead, that helped me. And, now I have my side business with the meat trading. I would add to it. I don't only rely on one service or one kind of service or one set of customer, but have a second set. Keep standing on 2 legs, because you never know what happens. The only thing that I know from my time as a freelancer is nothing is written. And history keeps changing, like the whole thing keeps changing. You don't know what happens tomorrow. You don't know where you will be and how the world changes. So just ensure that you are standing on 2 legs, keep the overhead low. And in the end, don't overwork yourself. I think as a freelancer, it's very easy, especially in the beginning, to overwork yourself, to overstretch yourself. But you won't be doing that for 20 years. Now I'm almost 50, and I think work-life balance is very important to me. So I ensure that I have what I call a WLB, work-life balance. Yeah, I ensure that I have good work-life balance, that wherever I am, I have enough time with my children, with my family. I do sports, and it doesn't matter where I am, I'm joining the local community. And this is was especially important in China, because if you don't join the local community in China, you will always be the Lao Wai, the stupid foreigner living in the ghetto, living on an expatriate package, don't understand and not understanding what is going on in the country, and actually getting quite prejudiced because you don't speak the language. You are sometimes the people don't take you for being able to understand the country. They treat you sometimes disrespectful because you treat them disrespectful. You don't integrate into the country. And so I say, just blend into the local community. Try to make local friends. Well, this is my future dream. This is what we are working on now. This is my next big family project. We want to do a 1-year travel the world vacation with my family. Why now? We just came to Germany in 2019. Why are we now thinking of traveling again? I don't know. I mean, like, we could be sitting here in Germany and enjoying this beautiful country, the beautiful countryside. Everything is, simple. You've got like social security, you've got good medical insurance and everything. The school is just all across the street. We could just be sitting here in 10 to 15 years and the children would just go through the whole curriculum. But I feel a little bit is lacking still. And I want to show my children the world, and I want to show them there's more than this countryside. Countryside is good. You should know where you come from, but there's so much to explore, and they should see that there's a lot of other countries, a lot of children in other countries that live totally differently, that may not have that much as they have because they are overfed here. They have too many toys and everything, and I want to show them something different. And I think it will just vaccinate them, or just it will be a seed that I will be growing in my children, as same as my father did with me when he was traveling to Spain when I was 2 or 3 years old, and I saw him speaking to the people in the local language, and I was really impressed by that. And I hope that my children, when I do that, they will also get international again. They're international already by this being mixed race, Chinese German, and they speak Chinese and German, and my son speaks a little bit of Spanish and English, but I want them to see the world, and I want to go out and get out of their comfort zone. So for this project, I've been thinking a lot, should we do it, shouldn't we do it? I know that I will meet a lot of headwind when I tell this to the school, to the kindergarten, maybe to my parents. They don't know it yet. And they say, oh my God, what are you doing? You just arrived. You are pulling the children out of this comfort zone, like out of this beautiful house, and you're going with them and it's not safe. We want to, if we travel, we don't want to go to New York or Miami or London. We want to go to remote places, to really remote places. And so I'm still thinking about reading a lot about world traveling families, workation families, and try to make up my mind. And this is also why I found the other presentation so interesting about this homeschooling and teaching children when you are traveling. If I do this vacation with my family, of course, as you know, in Germany, we are obliged to go to school. We cannot, if you're registered in Germany, you must go to school. If you don't go, they send the police. So it's really much more rigid than in other countries. You must send children to school. So the only way to do this is to either deregister from Germany totally for 1 year, or to write a concept to the school that my son is attending and telling them why I want to do the vocation. But if I do that, I have to come up with a concept of why, first of all, my children have to leave school for 1 year, and how they are going to be able to keep up with the curriculum. So there's two things. They have to keep up with the curriculum, and they have to maybe do some work that will develop their career, their personality. For example, we could do development aid. Like we go to Ethiopia and do the development aid, right? This would be something that would work, but it also depends on the head of the school. So I have to talk to them. So now I'm really torn in between. Should I deregister from Germany, or should I, write like an expose and talk to the head of the school? Anyway, this is my future dream. And let's see what we do. Maybe we do it next year, because my son will change from elementary school to secondary school, from primary school to secondary school next year. And he will switch between two schools. So this is a good opportunity for him to leave school. And my younger daughter at the time is in kindergarten. So yeah, it doesn't really matter. She will use some 1 year of kindergarten, but hey, if we travel, and this is what I found with Rita Walker's presentation so interesting, you meet a lot of people. So they lose on the one hand long-term relationships, but they gain on the other hand. So they meet a lot of cultures. They meet not only young children, older children, they meet poor people, rich people, they see so much. So I think it will develop their personality. And the good thing is that my wife is supporting me. So she's on the same page. So she said, wow, I came up with this idea. And she said, wow, this is a great idea, let's do it. And why did I get that idea? I want to show you an inspirational read, but this is in German. I have just, borrowed this book from the local library here. It's really interesting. In the local library, you find this book, and it's called Around the World with Only 50 euros in My Pocket: How I Left with Little and Came Back as a Rich Man. And the interesting thing about this is a young guy. He left school, like after he did his A-levels. He's a smart guy. At the age of 18, he said, Mom, Dad, I'm leaving. I want to see the world. I want to travel around the world. I only have 50 euros. And he left. And the thing is, he kept traveling around the world for 5 years. 5 years. And he never ran out of money. He always said, okay, I can do everything. You teach me, I can do everything. And he was teaching in about 50, 60 different professions. He was doing everything from IT programming to bartendering to painting. He was earning his passage over the Atlantic Ocean in a boat just by being a hand on the boat. He was cleaning the boat. He was doing all the work on the boat, and he got the passage for free. So he never took a plane. He never took a plane while traveling the world. He always crossed the Atlantic Ocean with a boat, helping the boat owner on the boat. He crossed the Pacific Ocean on the boat, and he crossed the Indian Ocean on the boat. And he he traveled around the world in 5 years. And he came back as a rich man, not in terms of him having a lot of money. He always had enough money, but he came back as a person who knows that you put him in any situation, he will survive. He can do everything, and he doesn't think he is too, too educated to do bad work. So he can always earn his money, and he's willing to learn everything. And the second thing, why did he come back as a rich man? He developed spiritually. So he really saw that for life, you don't really need a lot. You don't really need a lot. You need enough, but you don't need a lot. So this is his kind of spiritual awakening. And so he came back as a rich man, and not in terms of having a lot of money. So this I read in this book made me think about what I should do, travel around the world. Maybe it's interesting and we do something totally out of the way. So I can recommend this book, but I don't know if they have it in English. It's in German. So I want to end this whole presentation with a final Chinese proverb. It's from Lao Tzu. It's a Taoist philosopher, 2,400 to 2,600 years ago. And this is called 千里之行，始于足下, which means a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And this means do the first step and just keep on traveling from there on. And yeah, this is everything I wanted to say today. I say thank you and 谢谢.